one of the things that actually occurs to me in this conversation is you actually saw an opportunity in me first. And it was these small opportunities to do this visual content. And then later I started to see an opportunity for you. But it is kind of funny. I always think about the second part of that story because it's the one where all the success came from. But the first part of the story is central to it, which is you, out of some sort of altruism or something, wanted me to have opportunities. That
I saw a talented guy, and I saw that the talent, you're kind of spinning your wheels. And so it was like I wanted to make sure, as behind the scenes, I've quoted many times. For me, a key principle is Hyman Roth. I always make money for my friends. And so, quoting the elderly Jewish gangster from The Godfather who ends up very poorly. But in any case, we started working together, and then sort of the first time that we formally worked together, where we actually formed a company together and we actually started working together, was with Truth Revolt. And this is now circa 2013.
Yeah. Well, you had given me one of the best pieces of business advice I ever got. And at the same time, another friend of mine named Frank gave me a very similar piece of advice. And it was sort of, God wanted me to hear it twice. You said it much more colorfully than he did, which is you said something along the lines of, Jeremy, you're very good at pissing, but you are very bad at knowing which way the wind blows. If you would just turn and let reality work for you instead of you always working against reality, I think you'd have some success. And that really resonated with me. At that time, I was also realizing something about you, which was that you needed to be famous and that you needed a platform from which to influence the political conversation. And I thought that I had discovered it because, again, by way of Andrew Breitbart and some of our Friends of Abe connections, I'd become pals with a lot of the board members at the David Horowitz Freedom Center. David, former leftist, becomes conservative, and I saw a lot of commonality between you and David. Both fighters, not both highly intellectual, both great writers, but fundamentally fighters, not think tank guys. Both Jewish, both part of the LA scene, both with a rich interest in culture. The difference, of course, being that he's 50 years older than you are. And I could see that there was going to come a time where David would need to step down and he would want his legacy, the Freedom Center, to be passed on. I thought, well, there isn't a better guy in the country than Ben for that job. So behind the scenes, I started meeting with board members who are also part of Friends of Abe and planting seeds about this and getting buy-in. And this goes on for maybe 18 months of really getting people to see that you could be the future of the Freedom Center. And then they were working David behind the scenes until one day, and this is the way all good ideas are, right? One day it's David's idea, not mine, that you could be the heir at the Freedom Center. And he calls you and gives you this opportunity with Truth Revolt. And you and I at that time to your point, we created our first company within the Freedom Center. Within the Freedom Center.
And it actually saw some initial pretty significant success.
Absolutely.
And we learned some really important lessons from that one. Among those lessons were luck is not a business strategy, because we had designed a website and very much we were hunting for Drudge links at that time, which was one way that conservatives would try to generate traffic off of no budget. Was if you get a link from Drudge, it explodes your traffic.
Right.
And so we would try to get links from Drudge, and we realized that sometimes the gods were generous and sometimes they were not. And the other thing that we learned is that you have to find an audience that is capable of understanding the business pitch. So,
well, this is when you gave me my nickname, I believe, which is the Stupid Whisperer. This is because you and I would always pitch people our ideas, and you would come in and you would Ben Shapiro all over them. You would use Harvard words at 2x, like you are a podcast turned up to 2x just in regular life,
right.
In terms of the speed of your, and these people would just sort of look at you with these blank, doe-eyed expressions, and then the Stupid Whisperer would come in, and
soft Texas lilt.
Yeah, that Texas drawl would come out real slow. Sock puppets, and I would explain your ideas to them, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah."
It was very frustrating. I mean, I remember walking out being like, "I don't understand." They understand what he's saying, but they have no idea. It was like I was speaking Swahili.
He's barely using English. And they understand him. They don't understand anything.
But it turned out that no matter whether it was me or whether it was the Stupid Whisperer, there are certain people who are just not capable of receiving these ideas, and we both know who we're talking about here.
This is when you wrote our business plan on a cocktail napkin.
This is. Now, to be fair, you came up with the business plan. So Jeremy was the one who cracked the code of not only, sort of we need to invest in making people in our movement, I mean, not just me, but generally, more famous. We need to actually use the tools at our disposal. And you were the first person to really discover the magic of social media and how important social media was. Because most of us were spending our days, whittling away on Twitter.
Yeah.
But you were the first person who said, wait a second, there's a whole other world of social media and we really need to get involved. So at this point, you can take over the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was we should be marketing first, right? And social media presents the opportunity to do that. And of course, the Freedom Center and therefore Truth Revolt were a nonprofit. They were always struggling to figure out how to pay for us, because one of the problems in conservative nonprofits is that no matter how successful a particular initiative is, its ultimate success is determined by whether or not people will keep giving you money for it. And unfortunately, when you go to the same donors year after year, you have to give them something new. So we had a lot of success in that first year or so of Truth Revolt, but what was the story we were going to take to donors next? And I said, well, here's an idea. Instead of taking them year after year, what if we had kind of a for-profit model within the nonprofit universe where we could use ad revenue and the enormous traffic available to us through marketing on social to pay for all of this, and then we're not beholden to the donors. And now, even the stupid whisperer could not talk slow enough for certain people to understand it. And we're in this big meeting one day, and this very wealthy, very elderly benefactor of conservative think tanks said, essentially, he said, I need you to explain this to me in even simpler terms.
And we'd explained it about 7 times already.
Oh, yeah. And Ben turns over a cocktail napkin, takes a pen, and you drew an F for Facebook.
Well, it was okay, so it was $sign.
$sign, okay.
Arrow.
$sign arrow.
F for Facebook.
F for Facebook.
Arrow. Website. Arrow back to $sign. Right, and that was, and I said, this is our business.
This is our business plan.
And yeah,
they fired us.
Yeah, they defunded us. They fired you. I quit in solidarity.
That's fair. They fired me.
Yeah. Well, they still wanted me to stick around so they could, pretend that I was still associated. But I had been relegated off to the gulag somewhere. Wasn't actually given the death sentence. I was just sort of gulag, and I was like, okay, that's not what we're doing. So instead,
the funny thing is, we had both bought houses like 1 month before this.
Well, I mean, it bodes very poorly for our move. Because literally every time in our careers we have bought houses, something cataclysmic has happened.
That's fair.
Nearly almost immediately. So at that point, we decide that we're going to take that business plan and go to market.
Yeah.
And you were really the driving force here, because you found the people who decided to actually take a flyer on us.
Well, the third part of our triad, right? Caleb, our business partner, co-CEO of the company. I'd been working with Caleb at that time. He was working with a high net worth family out of Texas. They're trying to get involved in culture. And like Mark Masters and many others before, through whatever political connections, they got connected to me. And then I tried to talk them out of spending their money on culture because I wanted them to maintain some of their money. And during this period of time, I'd really hit it off with Caleb. And when we lost that job at the Freedom Center, I called him and said, listen, I know you're trying to get involved in culture. I said, I think there is a path for conservatives to create entertainment. But I think you have to go the roundabout way. I basically gave him the same plan that I had pitched to you and then to others, which was we need a marketing mechanism, a marketing and distribution mechanism that allows us to actually put an audience on the target, because Hollywood will never cooperate. Even if you manage to make a great film, they'll never cooperate. They'll make it very difficult for you. I said, I think with Ben and with what we've been doing at Truth Revolt evolved with this cocktail napkin business plan, that we can make something that's capable of marketing whatever we produce thereafter for this particular audience. And he got the vision right away, thank God, because I don't know how we were going to pay our mortgages. You probably had some savings at that time because you're a more rational fellow than I am. I had a nicer car, though. Fortunately, Caleb quickly got the vision, and he went to the high net worth family with whom he was working at that time, and they took a risk on us. They gave us. They committed to give us $7.5 million to start the Daily Wire. We didn't take the money up front. We didn't want it that way. We wanted for them to just pay the expenses of the company month after month up to the $7.5 million mark. And at month 14, we were $4.7 million in, and we became cash flow positive. We never took the rest of that money, and we've never gone back and taken any money since. I mean, since then, we've grown this company off of that cocktail napkin business plan. Now, it's fair to say, and I think Caleb would interrupt here if he were here, and to say, it got a little bit more sophisticated than the cocktail napkin.
It did. And it's amazing when we look back at the original projections, which places we thought would be centers of revenue and which places we did not. So certain places that we thought would be centers of revenue certainly are centers of revenue. But one area that we had no idea was going to be a center of revenue was the actual podcast revenue.
That's right.
Like I look back at that business plan, and what we had allocated for the amount of revenue from the podcast was minimal compared to how successful the podcast became. So it just shows you, all you can do is sort of plan for the possibility of success, and then you push where there's actual mush, right? You push where there's actual give.
I responded to a tweet from Cernovich a few weeks ago. Every now and then when he isn't posting politics, he'll actually post kind of aspirational business ideas, and they're quite good. I can't remember exactly what he had tweeted, but it was something about success and failure in business. And I responded with what I think is the greatest lesson I've learned in this journey that we've been on, which is that your success in business, ultimately, it doesn't come down to the quality of your plan. It doesn't come down to your ability to avoid catastrophe. It doesn't come down to your ability to systematize success. All of those things matter, but none of them are what determine ultimately long-term success. Long-term success in business is just your ability to fail, maneuver, and keep moving.
I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Ben Shapiro Show Sunday Special. If you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all of our future content.